Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today's February 23rd, 2018, and we got a little bit of a show here for you. We have some reissues, one brand new tool. Most of the stuff's overseas. Do have one domestic release, which is a reissue, which is what I started to say ahead of release, and then we have the kit announcements from Fujimi and Oshima for May. These will be the last. Well, the Fujimi doesn't go to the show in Shizuoka. They just don't. They don't go to any shows other than Wonderfest. But the this will be the last stuff from Aoshima, as probably was the last stuff from Hasegawa that will be announced prior to the Shizuoka Hobby Show, filling all of those reissue slots through the summer and into early fall. So it's kind of interesting to see what has been announced. A lot of it's just reissues, but there's a couple of little things in there that I think are kind of interesting. So let's just, I guess, plow ahead right on into the kit news itself. So in May, aside from Justin Timberlake memes about it's going to be May, Fujimi has announced that they're going to be reissuing their garage and tools as one kit. You may recall that 9 months, 10 months ago, they had released the garage and the tools as two separate boxes. This is something Fujimi has always sold these things these ways, where it's been a garage, a tools, and the garage and tools. So this is going to be a reissue of the garage and tools packaged together. It's been a while since the garage and tools have been done together. Go look at what the prices are for them pretty much anywhere if you can find one. I know that my local guy who has a lot of older stuff that he just can't sell because it's frankly priced too high compared to what the reissues cost, has a couple of the garage and tools laying around for like close to $50. Well, this isn't going to cost that much. It's probably going to be like less than 30. I didn't look at the exact price, but based on the fact that the garage was like 14 and the tools were like 12, to combine they should be less than $30. They're going to be reissuing their Nissan Skyline R31 GTSR. This is basically the same Skyline that Aoshima reissued in their model car lineup not that long ago, but it's a different trim level. So if you're really into Skylines, this one has, again, another kit that has been available for a little while. They're going to reissue their Toyota Soarer 2.5 GT. This is the same kit that was also released to us here in the United States as the Lexus SC. This is going to be the Japanese version only as far as being a JDM car and not having the Lexus tie-in. Fujimi did make a Lexus kit of the Soarer at one point. It may be close to 10 years since that's been released last, so maybe we'll see that come around again if the Soarer sells and there's enough money to justify the revenue, so to speak. They're going to make a reissue of their Honda Civic Del Sol Sear. That's the SIR, which is always like the sporty upgraded trim. It's been a while since any of Fujimi's Civic Del Sols have been available, so I know there'd be a lot of people that would be happy to have that come back, especially at a reissue price. They're also, and this is another thing be very interesting, I know, to a lot of people who have tried to track these kits down and have found them basically to spend a lot of money on what has become an unbuildable project, and that is some of the Racing Star series that Fujimi did in the past. These kits were done like in between 1991 and 2002. There's a series of them. And they had these great big wild body kits from Veilside and Blitz and these various other Japanese aftermarket tuning companies, and the parts were all done in resin. So fast forward, 18, 20 years later, and of course all that resin is useless for the most part. A lot of those resin pieces don't fit. They've shrunk. It wasn't good resin at the time, and age has done nothing for it. So we're going to see the first two, is there going to be more? I don't know, of these old Racing Star kits coming back, and they're going to be the Nissan S14 Silvia Veilside C1 and the Nissan Silvia S15 Veilside EC1. So again, advanced builders, it's basically their base Silvia kit that they've done a bunch of different times now to the point where those kits are less than $20, but they're going to have all of those old resin pieces probably made out of resin again, more than likely. So, it's going to be a resin trans kit with the kit itself. Again, keep that in mind when you buy it. Don't want to see anyone complaining about getting resin in their model kit. You've been warned. But those kits sell for a boatload of money because they're 20 years old, because it was a one-time only run back in 20 years ago or 18 years ago, depending on which kits, and also because it's a crapshoot when you buy one as to whether or not you get like anything you can build. I have one of the Subaru Imprezas, the Tommy Kira version of that, which has a resin front bumper and like a white metal wing setup. And fortunately, so far, the bumper seems to more or less fit. The bumper itself has two pins molded into the back of it, or molded in, cast into the back of it, that are supposed to fit the car itself, which had pinholes or receiver holes, I should say, for the bumper for the original Impreza. And more or less, if I cut one of the mounting pins off the resin bumper, it would fit flush. Otherwise, it doesn't quite fit, which is not necessarily a shrink issue. It's like 2 millimeters too wide, basically. But like I said, for a lot of people who've been looking for these old Racing Star kits, to have them come back is pretty much not necessarily unexpected. Well, it is unexpected. I would say unprecedented, but it's unexpected because, again, they've never been reissued in this format with these veil side things in them because the resin was done once and that was it. So it'd be kind of interesting to see what the resin quality is in 2018. Again, buyer beware. It's resin. And then last, two things from Fujimi still in May, they're going to reissue their 1976 Porsche 930 Turbo. So that's the turbo, the 911. The 930 was the body number on that. That was most recently seen in the Circuit no Anami, the Circuit Wolf series. They did that. It was a car with the red box art on it. Unfortunately, it's right behind the camera, and it's behind something else. I can't quite read what this out of the box says. But that's 5 years, I think, since that kit was done, or 4 or 5, somewhere in there. And then they're also going to be reissuing their 1973 Porsche 911 Carrera RS 3.0. This is the one Porsche Enthusiast Series. By the way, these are Enthusiast Series kits. These are not the cheap down Real Sports. They're going to be sold under the Real Sports name, but if you've been following along for the last 2 years, you know they've been reissuing all these Enthusiast Series kits without the Enthusiast Series name being attached to them anymore, which is great because the prices are lower than they were at the time. Most recent thing I can think of, which is the example we use, is the BMW 635 reissue, where the reissue price is $31, which is exactly what it should cost for inflation. So getting these kits effectively for what they cost new is great. But anyway, the 73 911 is the one that has the green car on the box art. It's the same kit that Revell of Germany made that is an absolute disaster of a model kit. But this kit, I think, was reissued, I want to say in 2004, 2002. Somewhere in the early 2000s was the last time a lot of the Enthusiast Series kits were run. And then a bunch of them have been plugged into these Circuit Wolf kits and other releases over time. But the last time the 73 was reissued was basically 15 years ago. And it is single-handedly, other than the 356 variants that some of them haven't been reissued for a while, it is single-handedly the most expensive of the 911 kits, other than the 67 and 69 kits, which have not, again, been reissued in 15, 20 years. I can't promise you anything, but it certainly seems like that might be feasible to see those come back again. But the 73, again, for all of the basically 70s and 80s Porsches, they've all been reissued except this one. And so I'm A1 thrilled to be able to go grab one of these for $26. Usually you see these things pop up and they start around $50 and go from there because they are the only really buildable version of that car, and even then it's still not that it's not perfectly accurate. A lot of the the Fujimi Enthusiast Series tooling shared generational tooling, right? The 67, the 67, the 69, and I think the 71, they're all in one body, basically, body set of tooling, and then the 70s into the 80s the 80s cars are on one body set of tooling, the 70s cars are on one body set of tooling. A lot of stuff shared chassis and engines and stuff like that, but as far as the body tooling, and if you look at the exact way the Enthusiast Series were released originally back in the 1980s, they did these kits, then these kits, then these kits, and they're in chunks as they moved around the tooling. So again, this is the one of those that has been done absolutely thrilled to see that come back. Over at Oshima in the month of May, in the model car lineup, we're going to see a reissue of the 78 Mitsubishi Galant Lambada. That is something that we got here in the United States. This has been reissued within the last 3.5 years I've done the show, just as an old Best Car Vintage kit, which this is still Best Car Vintage, new box basically, new decals. I can't think what this is here in the United States. Here, guys, help me. It was a captive import. I meant to look it up before I started recording, but I forgot. It was something, something that the Mopar people did a captive import of. Was it a Dutch? I'll look it up as I'm sitting here thinking about it. But the next thing up on the model car lineup is a reissue of the 1979 Suzuki ST30 Carry panel. Again, that's another old Best Car Vintage kit. It's the only one of like this genre of Suzuki carriers that is available. Trying to think. It's an okay model. I mean, it's nothing fantastic. It's a shelf model. Like a lot of the Best Car Vintage stuff, it's a shelf model. The one interesting sort of tie-in here is they are going to give you the parts to do I always want to say Japanese post, and then realize it's Japan post. Stop myself, and it makes me sound like I can't pronounce Japan. It's they're going to include the parts to do the Japan post and the decals to do the Japan post version. So if you happen to have like the Japan post Subaru Sandbar and the Japan post Daihatsu Midget, maybe you need one of these for the Japan Post version of the Suzuki Carry. It's been a while since that specific kit has been reissued in that format anyway. I'm still poking in here in the background trying to pull up Mitsubishi Galants. Next reissue in the model car lineup is going to be a reissue of their 1980 Mazda Familia 323. That is the IME tooling. I guess we couldn't let Fujimi have all the fun. We're reissuing their old Mitsuya tooling. So they're going to reissue their version, which is equally as bad as far as, those old IMA stuff. Now I'm going to sit here and fidget because my charger, which is on its last legs from my computer because my cats knocked the computer on the floor, fortunately it landed directly on the charger cord. Didn't break anything in the computer, but it bent the living bejesus out of the thing that plugs into the side of the computer. Fortunately, we shall be getting that rectified, hopefully relatively quickly. But anyway, fixed. Mazda 323, nothing new there, just new decals. Best Car Vintage, really Best Car Vintage, because this is somebody else's Best Car Vintage kit. And then the last of the model car lineup series is going to be a reissue of their FD3S Mazda RX-7. This time it's going to be done as a 2002 Spirit R Type B. I know it's a lot of letters and numbers. What does it mean? The Spirit Rs were the last RX-7s that were done. They basically are a Type R RX-7, and there were a Type A, Type B, Type C of the Spirit Rs. The Type A was a two-seater car with like lightweight Recaro seats and sort of a racy style interior, basically stripped out. Nothing more horsepower-wise than the other Type Rs that were done a little earlier in the production run of the FD3S series, but it was, it's the last of the, it was really the last of the, of that generation RX-7, and it was actually the last of the RX-7s because after that you went to the RX-8. Anyway, the Type B is a 2+2, so it's a conventional seating arrangement, and then it's a stick shift. The Type C is a 2+2 with a automatic. So this will be the Type B. The Type B has not been done by anybody before. Fujimi has done a Spirit R Type A. So this is going to be there's going to be like new wheels, new decals, and I think there might be like a couple of extra pieces here chucked in to make it work, because as far as I know, Oshima doesn't have a Spirit R or even a Type R trim package. There might be a couple different new body parts here added, but the wheels are going to be different as well. So for the people who really, really like your RX-7s and your factory RX-7s, this is a unique addition to your collection because it has not existed prior to May of 2018. On the tuned model car side of things, we're getting a reissue of the 2001 Honda Odyssey Garson Garade VIP van, and then on the other tuned model car will be 1998 Toyota Mark II Tourer 5 Vertex Tuner Series car. So that's another one of the D1 Grand Prix style vehicles. And then last but not least from Oshima for these May pre-orders is going to be a 1999 Mazda RX-7 FD3S. So this is the beginning of the FD3S generation. These are going to be pre-painted kits. One's going to be in vintage red, and one is going to be called what is known as Innocent Blue Mica. I'm not sure exactly what about the blue is innocent per se, but be that as it may. They've done this in pre-paints before with the Innocent Blue Mica. The last time it was done was like in 2010, I want to say, 2009. And they did black and blue. So the vintage red is a new color as far as the pre-paints go. If you have some sort of fetish with collecting the pre-paint kits, that'll be a new pre-paint version. So let's go over here and look at our Mitsubishi Galant data here. Oh, the Dodge Challenger. That was the 1978 to 83 Dodge Challenger. I knew that it was a Mopar. I want to say it was something else, but yeah. So that was the Challenger X, whatever the heck you want to call it. So the Mitsubishi Galant Lambada is a right-hand drive Japanese car. So you need to create a bunch of different parts for it as far as getting it to look like a Dodge. I'm surprised nobody's ever done the trans kits for that. But obviously you need to convert it to left-hand drive and all that other stuff. But that's what that is if you want to like take on that project as far as that goes. So that's our kit news for this week. And now we have kit releases. Like I said, there is one domestic kit for this month, and that is this. It is the last of the round 2 kits for the month of February, and it is the 1962 Pontiac Catalina 421 Super Duty Polyglass Gasser 2. Okay, so this is done the flavor of the original Polyglass Gasser, which was a 62 Bonneville. This is not a Bonneville, obviously. This is the 1990s Catalina tooling. It was reissued by Round 2 not all that long ago, actually, that I can think of. I want to say, what, 2010, 2011, somewhere around in there. It's the same 421 Super Duty kit. There's there's new decals in here that sort of tie it into that Polyglass Gasser too, but the car itself has never been a gasser. It's always just been a 421 Super Duty, which is a drag car, mind you, but it's not a gasser. It includes these Goodyear Polyglass wide boots, as they like to call it. They don't fit the car. AMT or Round 2 will tell you right up front that they are tires for a different vehicle, not this one. Literally says that in their promotional advertising for this kit. So you get a free set of tires, if that means anything to you. It's a shelf restock, basically. And I put it in some fresh box arts, and people don't realize what it is. They'll buy it for nostalgia reasons because Polyglass Gasser, yay, and all that nonsense. But if you got a 62 Catalina Super Duty, you don't need another one. If you don't have one, it's a really good kit. You should go grab one. I think it's worth the money. I mean, I'm no champion of Round 2 by any stretch of imagination, but there are some of those AMT kits from the 90s that I personally enjoy because, without going into a whole giant backstory, because I've done a video on this once before called How Do We Get the Hobby? Remember we all did those over the summer? I got burned on Revell's reissues of old junk, and so I started buying AMT kits, and so I have an affinity for like the AMT Ertl era, basically from say 89 through 97 or so when they got sold over to Racing Champions. So I will always there's some things I wish Round 2 would do, like decals for the scripts and things like that, but as far as reissuing some of these late 90s tools, mid 90s tools, I'm all for it because they were good model kits. I know a lot of people have, since Round 2 has sort of done what they've done, first leasing the tooling and then buying the tooling and reissuing all these kits. A lot of people have been burned on what they thought, I guess, were new kits that are 1960s reissues, but some of the 1990s stuff is pretty well, pretty detailed, state of the art for the time. So like I said, if you're interested, I think it's worth at least taking a peek at it. Then we have a bunch of reissues from Oshima and Fujimi. We have one brand new toolkit, and that's from Hasegawa. So this is your Isuzu Gemini Irmscher Turbo. This is the kit you never knew you needed. This is a JDM builder, right? The Irmscher Turbo is a very lightweight because it's a small car and it had most of its weight stripped out for weight reduction. Little 4-banger with a turbo thrown on it. It was like 190 horsepower or something like that, which was enough to shuttle this little thing fast enough to beat a 1980s IROC Z, or a, say, pre-86 or so, F-body or a Fox body Mustang, because at the time those weren't really that powerful. When you start getting into the next generation of F-body Camaros and Firebirds and that sort of like post 1986 through 92, Mustang, nah, you got some power there. That little car can't keep up with it quite as well, but it could beat a V6 Camaro from the later 90s 2000s era. Small children running through. Don't even know why they're outside. It's raining, it's wet, it's muddy, and what are you gonna do, right? They're only young once. Let them enjoy it. This kit includes parts to do both the early and the late version of the Gemini. I'm sure we'll see a lot more of that come into play as these kits get reissued and more and more of them come out. Basically, the version that is being shown in the box art is the early version for basically 1986. There were some slight body tweaks in 1988 that made it the late version, which is very ironic because the kit says 1988, but it's the early version's bodywork. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pick a fight with Hasegawa over their type printing. But basically, the differences are the late version includes side marker lights. Well, actually, this may be. Let me pull this picture up and look at it real quick. Yep, it's still there. Okay. It's just Armsure logos on the side there. But the late version has side marker lights, side repeaters, a different grille, different taillights, and taillight buckets. There's also, I think, one other minor difference there as far as parts go. But it's a curbside kit. If you've seen any of the recent Hasegawa kits, the M360, the Civic, the Sunny pickup, or the Suzuki little Samurais, or what they call them, the Jimneys, and there's one more in there that I want to say that I can't think of right off the top of my head, but if you've seen any of the BMW 2002, you've seen any of those recent Hasegawa kits, you know what you're getting into with a Hasegawa kit, curbside, modest part count, 70, 80, but everything is that you need to see is there. Pretty big decal sheet on this one as well. What I like about this kit also is the side trim. If you look at the car, there's black side trims going down the side of the car. And that is always just a really big pain because you're going to mask off the side trim. Side trim is separate pieces. Now, it is molded into the front and back bumper, but that's a little less complicated than masking the entire car, because basically all you need to do is sort of mask the the top half of the bumper off rather than the whole car. There are decals on here for like Gemini CC and some really old, or not older, but earlier Gemini logos on the decal sheet. So again, expect to see 3, 4, 5 versions of this going down the road, especially if they decide to make the 3-door hatchback or make race cars out of it. So, expect to say Isuzu Gemini Hasegawa a lot coming in 2018, 2019. Moving over to Oshima, we had their reissues for the month, and there were 3 of the kits in the model car lineup, 2 in the Tune model car lineup. So we're going to start backwards forwards here. Tune model car lineup, you got a reissue of the Honda Stepwagon DAD VIP van. Not a lot to talk about here. These reissues of these Tune model car things, you're not getting anything new in them other than fresh sets of decals, but otherwise, parts content, nothing new there. You cannot build this as a factory stock step wagon, which would be really cool if they would let you do that. I don't know that the parts were tooled up to do a stock step wagon. I think this has always been a VIP van. I'd have to really dig and look to see if there's ever been a stock version of it. Basically because this is the next generation after the one that Fujimi did. And it'd just be cool to have the two of them side by side in my factory stock brain. But beyond that, big wheel and all the rest of the nonsense there. The other reissue on the Tune model car lineup is the Toyota Chaser JZX 100, which is basically the late 90s version. I'm trying to see if there's a year on mine that I can see from here. I can't, but it's like basically late 90s, early 2000s. This is the Toyota Racing Development factory aero package, basically. Different set of wheels and the aero package here. Really, the only thing that's different about this kit from a factory stock Toyota Chaser. Some of the Toyota Chaser kits have pieces, if not all of this tuning kit inside of it, but it has not been specifically sold in this way in probably about 10 years or so. It's one of those reissues that's been sort of languishing. They've reissued the factory stock kit, I think, twice in the last 10 years, but this TRD one hasn't gotten any love for whatever reason, but now it's back out. On the model car lineup, so these factory stock things, you have a reissue of the 2007 Nissan Fairlady Z Nismo version. We would call this a 350Z here in the United States. JDM only, no engine, curbside. It's I have one of their Fairlady Z kits because you cannot get basically the Tamiya Fairlady kits are in the factory 350Z kit is a 2005. The Nismo Z is a 2007, just like this. There is no factory 2007 350Z kit without buying the Oshima one, right? Because after that, you go into the 370Z, and that is, of course, a Tamiya kit. So, I have one of the Fairlady Zs. I have the exporter version, which is literally packaged as a 350Z, and it's a pretty nice kit. I mean, it's, curbside, rudimentary 50, 60 parts, something like that, but it's still, designed well and everything else to be, look like what it's supposed to look like. I'm not sure whose kit came out first in terms of that, or why Oshima did basically the same kit as a Fujimi Tamiya kit. But be that as it may, it is a carbon copy of the Tamiya kit, except of course you can only build it left-hand. You can only build it right-hand drive JDM. The Nismo Z, the Tamiya cells, can be built left-hand drive. So take that in consideration when you're looking around for these. Next, we got a reissue of the 1981 Toyota Corolla in the GT and DX trim levels. This, of course, is a reissue of the Best Car Vintage Corolla that was actually done in the early 1980s. Its origins, if you dig around long enough, you can find really, really old versions of this Corolla kit. They're still floating around out there in Japan. Basically, the trim levels are different here, different bumpers, different wheels, the mirrors are a little bit different, the way you paint them is a little bit different as far as the trim levels go. Be aware these Corollas require some minor surgery to get the newer parts that they tooled up in the early 2010s to fit the old 1980s bodies. So I said you have to shave some things here, you have to cut some things there. But, if you want a 1980s Corolla, there you go. I would like a 1983 Corolla 3-door, but nobody wants to, because that's one of the first cars that we bought new as a family way back when. After we bought a 1980 Volkswagen Rabbit that was on the back of a tow truck more than it was in my driveway, or my dad's driveway with my car, but you know what I mean. And we've had a Volkswagen Rabbit kit, so where's my 83 yourself at, guys? Then we have a reissue of the 1981 Toyota Soar. This is what they call it, known as the MZ11. This is the first gen Toyota Soar kit. Kind of interesting little juxtaposition here. If you buy this, and then you bought the Tamiya Toyota Soar, and then this Toyota Soar that Fujimi is going to reissue in May, you would have the entire lineup of Toyota Soars. So this is, again, a really old, Best Car Vintage kit from the early 1980s. So curbside, motorized, all that nonsense. But this is the first time this kit has been reissued in 10 plus years, maybe even longer. It's had new, I don't know if there's had new wheels tooled up for it, or if it's always had the factory stock wheels. That's how old this kit is. I haven't really seen the inside of one. As most times you find this kit listed on like a hobby search or something like that, they don't have the instructions for it because it was done so long ago. It was before hobby search existed in the format that it exists today. So this is a cool kit to have come back if you're a Toyota fan. And that takes care of Oshima. So we go over to Fujimi, who has 4 reissues for this week. Over on the Enthusiast series, that are not Boxes Enthusiast series, we have 2 of the Countachs that have come back. And they are the Lamborghini Countach LP400, representing, of course, the first gen, first model line of the Lamborghini Countach. So again, Enthusiast series, 200 and some odd parts. These Countachs are very well known for being fiddly and flimsy. Basically, it's very easy to break the A-pillars and smash the roof on them when you're sanding and things like that. One of the very nice things about the Oshima Countachs is the Oshima Countach has a blank front windshield. Basically, it's a literal piece of styrene that you glue into place. Well, actually, it's adhesive back, so you adhese it into place. That way, it sits in the car while you paint it and sand it and polish it and everything else like that. You only take it out to put the glass back in, right? So, you do have to be very, very careful with these Countachs well, Oshima's for sure as well, but especially especially the Fujimi ones. Obviously, the doors open on this. The Enthusiast Series Countach is the trunk area, which is actually the hood in this case, or the bonnet, because obviously a rear engine car. So you have there's the hood is separate, and there are pieces that go in there, and then you have, of course, the trunk. The boot is open to show the engine, and all of these other things. Doesn't make for a very sturdy body. So just be aware when you're playing with these. They're renowned for breaking. So just heads up. And then the other one that they've reissued this week is the Lamborghini Countach LP 500S. This is technically speaking the Walter Wolf kit. I don't know why it's not literally listed that way on the box art, but that's what this is. So you have that option as well. Same thing. 200 gajillion pieces. Fujimi Enthusiast Series. But it is cool to see these come back as Enthusiast Series kits, because the last time they were reissued as the Real Sports, which are the curbsides. So there's that. Also, we got a reissue of the Suzuki Wagon R. So this is a little 1990s upright boxy toaster on wheels. A little bit bigger than your Nissan Cube and whatnot, as it is a four-door. This gives you the opportunity to build it as the RR or the RR Suzuki Sports versions. Basically, the main differences here are there's two different steering wheels, one for each of the different trim levels, and then there are obviously different wheels for each of the trim levels, and then you have different front fascias for the different trim levels. Beyond that, the kits are identical. The interiors, the rest of the body, the back end, all that are the same. If you want to build what is a very 1980s era Japanese tuner, factory tuner at that, this is obviously an option for you. I have the RRX, which is the same kit, but a little bit more base model-y. Not quite so sporty. And then last but not least for this week, and this is still a puzzler to me why this kit got reissued, but it did, because it was already currently in the catalog, and it was currently available everywhere, and I don't see anything new about this kit that isn't in the old one, but this one costs $10 more, is a reissue of the Toyota Corolla Levin T27, the 1972. Basically, the Toyota Corolla Levin is a down-market, down-engine, down-trim package from the bigger Corollas that were in the 1970s. Bigger being a metaphorical statement at that point, because how much bigger is a bigger Corolla, but what I'm saying. You've got an engine insert here. I mean, it's an old kit. It's not bad. They did update the chassis a little bit on it, I think, from the origins, or maybe it's always had a more modern chassis, maybe one of the more modern curbsides that Fujimi did back in the day. But it was a $12 kit. Now it's like a $24 kit. I don't see the reason for the increase, unless maybe they went through and cleaned the molds up, maybe? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have a Levin. It's one of the very few Toyota kits I don't have in terms of Corollas and things like that. I don't know. It was always one of those cars that was like, it's always like, oh, add that to cart. And then I'm like, nah, never mind. So I don't know if I actually could get this one either, but for people who are looking for this, and weren't aware that it was still available. I'm assuming the old one's going to get pulled out, so once it sells out everywhere, that'll be it. So if you want a $12 Levin, go grab one now while they're still in existence, or else you'll have to pay for the slightly newer box art. These Fujimi box arts, where we're just doing a car on a black background, are a little stark and, minimalistic, but hey, whatever. They reintroduced the original Fujimi logo, so maybe the original Fujimi boxes back in the day were like this too. I don't know, so... It is what it is, I guess. So, guys, that about covers it for this week. We are waiting on a couple of things in terms of February kits at this point. There's still the Liberty Walk GTR, the R35 GTR, the version 2 kit from Oshima. That's still pending. There are two more of the Enthusiast Series Countachs coming from Fujimi. And then... there's a bunch of Aoshima reissues, whether they'll come or not, we'll see. A couple of pre-paint Aoshima kits as well, and then we're still waiting on the two Revell releases for the month of February as well. Don't bankruptcy panic. You know, it'll be. I'm sure they'll probably end up being here tomorrow or on Monday, and you know the video's already done and made and in the can. So and we'll talk about them next week. So anyway, guys, this is the last video for the month of February, I believe, since the 29th is a Thursday, is it not? Not 28th, excuse me, is Wednesday. I don't know why I thought there was a 29th this month. And on a personal level, like any of you care, I shall finally be getting back to work next week, starting on, well, I have orientation on Monday, starting on Tuesday. And that'll once again be nights, but the job here is 2 miles away. It takes me less than 10 minutes to get there. All of the 3 stop signs that I have to go through to get to work. So, yeah, that'd be interesting. Hopefully that shouldn't affect, you know, the channel at all in any way that you guys will notice. Other than maybe, you know, the monthly recaps will be a little later than normal because it all depends on, you know, getting home and do I feel like, you know, do I feel like doing a video like March 1st. I'm going to work that night, so Revell won't post their stuff till the middle of the afternoon. Chances are that might come on the weekend. Anyway, guys, that covers it. Hope you enjoyed it.